recordings, or how many of you went through the modules which was uh, shared yesterday? So I shared a few modules, right? Two modules were new in the LMS. How many of you went through it? Okay. So do you have any questions, anybody? If you went through yesterday's recordings, do you have any questions which I could answer before we move on? Any questions on decision trees? On No, Shinoj, quiz I don't want to discuss here. You take that up in the discussion forum. So I don't want to be spending time here discussing quizzes. The intention of quiz is to make you think a lot. So try again, and still if you are unable to understand, you can always move to the discussion forum. Okay. Which quiz are you referring to, by the way? The first one, quick question. This one? Okay. What is this one? I think this is on the riding mowers. Okay. So why is it so difficult? Like, what is the difficulty you are finding? Are you not able to understand the question, or what is it? Okay, so what is the difficulty? So you have been given some you have been given a data which has some. Okay, one second. So you are given a data which has two independent variables and one dependent variable. Okay, dependent. Let me open the data. Okay, so this is the data you have. This is just the household number. These are the two dependent variables that they have. Oh, why is the probability given here? I think I gave the wrong file. Anyway, so these are the three columns that you should be looking at. Okay, not these. So let me hide these. Okay, I will update the file. So you should have only these three columns. So these are the independent variables, and this is the dependent variable, which is binary in nature, ones and zeros. Okay, so this tells you basically about the income of a household. What is the income of a household? So this is income, and this is lot size. Lot size means how much of land do they own. Okay, how much land do they own? And this is whether this household has a particular equipment or not. So this household mower is like a tractor, you can say, is like a tractor. Okay, which is used for molding the grass in a house. Okay, so it's like a mini tractor. So whether this household has a tractor or not, that is the dependent variable. That obviously will depend on the income of the household and the plot size. How much of plot do they own? Okay, so this is the description of the data. Now the questions that we have is, what is the Gini index before any splits are made? Now before any splits are made, you are required to calculate the Gini index. So how will you calculate the Gini index? You just have some ones and zeros, right? You have some ones and zeros. You can calculate the Gini. Let's say you have 5 ones and you have, let's say, 8 zeros. So you don't even have to look at these to calculate the Gini index. Just look at these two and you know the formula for Gini index. This is the formula for Gini index. Just put this. So 1 minus proportion of 1's whole square plus proportion of 0 whole square. This is the formula for Gini index before split. So the first question. The next question is, now let's say a decision is made to split the data set based on independent variable lot size. Okay. So based on lot size, then what else are they asking? They are asking the decision is lot size is greater than 19. One second. Yeah, so this is the question. So the question is the decision is made to split the data set on independent variable lot size. Okay. So that means you are making a split on lot size. So if this is your data set, this is lot size. Yesterday we were discussing this is one variable and this is income. So you are making a split somewhere on lot size. And where are you making that? You are making that lot size is greater than 19. Okay. So that means this point is 19. Okay. So this is 19. Then what else? As a result, two buckets will be formed. One bucket which is true for this and one bucket which is false for this. Now the Gini index for the true bucket is and for the false bucket is. So let's say lot size is less than equal to 19. So this is true and you have false. So this will have true, this will have false. Now all you have to do is find out how many ones are here and how many zeros are here, and then use the same formula. Similarly, all you have to do is find the number of ones here, the number of zeros here, and then use the same formula only here. Okay, this formula will apply only to the number of ones and zeros here. Similarly this. So this is how you will solve it. Is it clear? Yeah, whatever the number is, use the same formula and calculate the Gini index separately for the two buckets, and that's what you will have to give here. Okay, and the third question is what is the final Gini index after split? Okay, so final Gini index means overall. Now second question asks you separately for the true side and for the false side. Third question will ask you overall. Overall, what is the Gini index? So that you can do overall. If you have to do, you take a weighted average. Okay, you take a weighted average because this is bucket 1 and this is bucket 2. So the number of points in bucket 1 into Gini index of bucket 1, okay, plus the number of points in bucket 2 into Gini index of bucket 2 divided by the total number of points. This is how you calculate the overall Gini index. Okay, I hope that is clear now. Any other questions, guys, before we move on? Any other questions? Tell me, guys, any other questions? Do you have any other questions? Okay, so let's move on then. So let's do a quick revision and then we will proceed. Okay, so what did we see yesterday? We saw another supervised learning algorithm, which is decision trees. So how does a decision tree come up with the function f? So in case of a decision tree, the function f is a series of inequalities. Okay, you will get a series of equations which are all inequalities. So decisions basically. So you may get x1 is less than equal to some constant k, x3 is greater than equal to another constant. So this is how you will get all the functions. You will not have just one single function. So in case of linear regression, for example, we used to get one single equation, right? We used to get one single equation. Here we don't get one single equation, we get a list of equations. All the equations together, they form this function f. Okay, and we get that as a decision. So that is why it is known as decision tree. So first we start with the root node. So root node is the first decision that you made. So how would the decision tree algorithm select which one has to become the root node? It will select that particular independent variable which gives the maximum reduction in Gini index. So always remember, the goal of a decision tree is to reduce the impurity. Reduce the impurity that is present in the data, or the goal is to create homogeneous buckets. So you may start out with a different number of ones and zeros in your data. The goal of a decision tree would be to create splits so that after the split within a bucket you have the same type of data, either all ones or all zeros. Okay, not a mixture of ones and zeros. It will try to create homogeneous buckets. Okay, the splits will be made based on the independent variables, and as a result of that, the number of the dependent variables in a single bucket will be more homogeneous. It will not be a mixture. It will try to make it as homogeneous as possible. Of course, it may not be possible all the time because it might overfit the data if it tries to create very small splits, but it tries to do that. That is the goal of a decision tree. Okay, now mathematically, how does it try to do this? It will not plot and then decide where to split. So mathematically it tries to reduce a parameter. That parameter is Gini index. So Gini index is a measure of impurity, and decision trees, they try to reduce the value of Gini index because the goal is to create homogeneous buckets or more pure buckets. So obviously if you decrease the impurity, the purity will increase. So that is the goal of a decision tree. Okay, so the decisions, they start with the root node, and then it goes on. So the best independent variable is selected first and you get a decision here, and then you have the other decisions being made. So you have another decision here, another, and each can be on a different independent variable. It can be on the same independent variable, or it can be on a different independent variable. Okay, depending on which variable is giving the least value of Gini index. So that is how it will make a prediction. Now, now we have seen how do we train our model. Okay, we have seen this yesterday, that this is how we trained our model. We just gave the data, and from the training data, it gave us this decision, this tree. Okay, now this function is known to us. We know this function now. We get this function as a list of inequalities. But how will it make a prediction? Now let's say on the test data we want to find y. We know the function f now, and on the test data we know these values. Now how do we find our y? So let us see that. So how will a decision tree be used for prediction? We have seen how do we find the function f. We have seen how is the model trained. Now let us see how do we use the same tree for prediction. Now let's take a small example to do this. So let's say this is independent variable 1 and this is independent variable 2, and let's say we have these, and during training we made a split here. Okay, so the split is x1 is less than equal to 5. Let's say this is 5, and we have true, we have false here. So true means it is plus and false means it is minus. So this is my only node that I have. This is a very small data, so I have just the root node, and this is the decision that is being made. Now this is on the training data. Now let's say I introduce some test data points. So let's say I have a test data point here. Okay, I don't know whether it is plus or minus. It is just a dot right now. And let's say I have a test data point here. I have to predict for these 2 points. Now how will I predict? How will I predict for these 2 points? So what a decision tree does is, you have this point, so you will know the axis of this point, the coordinates of this point. So the coordinates of this point is known to you. So you know the x1 for this point, you know the x2 for this point. Similarly, you know x1 for this point and x2 for this point. So all a decision tree has to do, it's very simple. It will just take the point, let's say it will take point number 1 first, and it will drop it here. It will drop it at the root node. Now at the root node, what do you see? You see x1 is less than equal to 5. Yes, exactly, Arpita. Okay. You will just see x1 is less than equal to 5. Which side does this point go? So for this point, is x1 less than equal to 5? Yes or no? Yes, it is less than equal to 5. So for this particular point, the value of x1 is less than 5. So that means it will go towards this side. So, and towards this side, what do you have? You have a positive decision. So the prediction for this point will be positive. So you will predict positive for this point. Similarly, for this point, x1 is less than equal to 5 is false, because you can clearly see the x1 coordinate for this point is more than 5. So it will automatically go towards this side. And this side, what do you have? You have a minus. So automatically the prediction for this will be minus. So this is as simple as that. This is how a decision tree will predict. It will just take the point and drop it from the root of the tree, and automatically the point will travel in whichever direction is hashed to. Okay, and at the end you will have some terminal node which will make some prediction. So this is how you make a prediction for a decision tree. Of course, you don't have to do this by hand. You will do it in Python, and the software will take care of this, but this is how it does. Is that clear, guys? Okay. Now, during prediction, there is one more thing that has to be noted. Okay. Now, in a decision tree, you can predict. There are 2 ways of making prediction. Okay, just like in logistic regression or any other classification algorithm, there are 2 ways you can predict. The first way is you can predict the class directly. By class, I mean you can directly predict 1 or 0. So, for example, here I am directly predicting the class that okay, it's a positive on this side, it's a negative on this side. Okay, but sometimes you may want to predict the probability also. Instead of the class, you can predict the probability. Now, when would you like to predict probability? When you want to set a threshold of your own. See, this is a very simple example where you already have all positives on one side and all negatives on the one side. Okay, this may not always be true. Sometimes you might have one negative also. Okay, because so you have 3 positives and 1 negative, and let's say here you have 5 negatives and 1 positive. So you may ask, why did it not go for further splits? It did not go for further splits because it was it did not want to overfit the data. That is why the decision tree stopped at the first split, because if it goes for further smaller splits like this, it may overfit the data. So it stopped at one split only, because there are just one points on this side. So just for one point, if it goes for a split, it might overfit. Remember, we discussed overfitting yesterday. So that is why it has stopped at just one split. Okay. Now if you see on this side, you don't entirely have pluses. You have one minus also. Similarly, on this side, you don't have entirely minus. So writing this may not be the best approach. So what sometimes we do is we mention the number of points. So we will mention 3 plus and we will mention 1 minus. Similarly, on this side, we will mention 5 minus and we will mention 1 plus. Okay, so this is how we also mention. So that means if let's say your plus is your 1, your plus is 1 and minus is 0, then what is the probability of 1 in this bucket? In this bucket, the probability of 1 is 3 by 4. And in this bucket, the probability of 1 is 1 by 6. So you have your probabilities. So you can predict the probability also. If this was the case, if this was the case, you would have, for this point, you would have predicted a probability of 3 by 4. And for this point, you would have predicted a probability of 1 by 6. Are you following, guys? Okay. So you can either predict the class or you can predict the probability. So probability, if you predict, you will just look at the probability of 1. We always predict the probability of 1, and always remember that. We never predict the probability of 0. 1 is our class of interest, not 0. In logistic also, we were predicting the probability of 1. We are always interested in probability of 1. 0, of course, you can find if you know this. You can just do 1 minus probability of 1. But at first, we always predict the probability of 1. Okay. So just to repeat what I have mentioned, sometimes if you have this data, okay, let me ask you guys if you have understood. Let's say this is x1 and this is x2, and I'm making a split here. Okay, x2 is less than equal to 5. This is true and this is false. Okay. So first let's say I want to write the class. So what should I write here? I just want to write the class. So what should I write here? Yes, guys. What will you predict for this? For this bucket? What will you predict for this bucket? Positive. Okay. We will predict negative, right? Because there are more negatives in this bucket. So you will predict negative here. And here you will predict positive. Okay, because there are more positive here. Okay. So because this is where we wanted to predict class. Wherever you want to predict class, we will take whichever is more in number. Okay, whichever is more in number, we will write that. Okay. Now if you ask what if both are equal, it is very unlikely that both will be equal in number. Okay, because if they are equal in number, you will not have a split at all. So you will not never have equal number. You'll always have one more than the other. So this is what you will predict. Now let's say if you want to predict the probability, then what would you do? If you want to predict the probability, what will you write here? Tell me. What would you write in this bucket? 5 by 7 is it? Vikram, think again. On this bucket, what will you write? The left hand side bucket. Yes, it is 2 by 7. Okay, we always write the probability of plus. Plus is our ones, right? So we always write the probability of 1, no matter which bucket we are looking at. So the probability of 1 is 2 by 7, not 5 by 7. Okay, it is 2 by 7. And what should I write here? Here it will be 5 by 7 because I have 5 pluses here. All of you understood this? Okay. So that means on your test data, if you are in this bucket, you will predict 2 by 7. On your test data, if you are in this bucket, you will predict 5 by 7. Okay. So this is how your predictions will be. Now, once you have the probability, you can again, because finally you will have to prepare your confusion matrix, right, guys? You will have to prepare your confusion matrix and find out the number of true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative. So for that you need ones and zeros. So what will you do with this probability? Just what you did in logistic regression. You will compare your probability with a threshold. Okay, you will compare it with a threshold, and based on that you will convert it to ones and zeros. If it is greater than threshold, you will say it's a 1. If it is less than threshold, you will say it's a 0. And then you will prepare your confusion matrix. Do you follow this, guys? This is the same approach that you took in logistic regression after you got probability. Only till the probability point, getting the probability, the steps are different. After that, it remains same for every algorithm, not just decision trees or logistic, but every other algorithm that we will see in the future. Okay, how do you get the probability? Only till that point your algorithm decides. Once that is done, you have the same process. You get the probability, you compare it with a threshold, get it, convert it to ones and zeros, and in the actual data also you have ones and zeros. You prepare the confusion matrix and calculate the accuracy parameters. So those steps are the same. What varies is how do you get the probability. Logistic regression uses a parametric approach, and here we are using a different approach. We are using splits based on Gini index, and then we are getting the probability. Okay. All clear so far, guys? Okay, so now let us move to Python then. Now we can move to Python and we can do all that we have learned so far. Let us do that in Python now. Okay, let me ask you a question before we move on. So the question is, which one is true? Tell me, guys, which one do you think is correct? I have 4 diagrams here. Which one is correct? There can be more than one correct also. Which of these 4 is correct? You can use your pen and paper and try to answer this question. So the blue one is training and the green one is test data. So this is based on overfitting and underfitting. Tell me guys quickly. So Anupama says one first is right. So first is right, which means complexity. By complexity, I mean the number of splits. The more splits you make, the more complex you become. Isn't the first and second the same? Yeah. The first and second is the same. Okay, I didn't see that. Okay, but still, which ones are correct then? Both means which ones? Okay, Pankaj says 1, 2, and 3. Okay, 1, 2 are the same, so let's leave that. So first and third is what Pankaj is saying. 1 and 4. Okay, let's understand. So for example, in the first one, on which side do you have overfitting? On this side or on this side? Where do you have overfitting? Obviously on this side. More complex, more overfitting. So this is where overfitting happens. Okay. This is where overfitting happens. Okay. So obviously when you have overfitting, your performance will be less on test data, and on the train data overfitting has no influence on the train data. So on the test data only you will have low accuracy. So this is correct. Okay, this is the same, so it is correct, of course. Now let's see the third one. Third one, again you have overfitting on this side. Now when you have overfitting, the error will be less on the training data. Yes, that is correct, and the error will be more on the test data. So these two are the same basically. Instead of accuracy, I have written error here, so they are opposite. So this is also correct. The third one is also correct. Okay, what about the fourth one? You have overfitting here. When you overfit, your error will be less on the training data, and your error will be more on the test data. Yes, this also looks correct, but we will have to see how does it decrease or increase. So we'll have to evaluate this also in that fashion. So let's look at the training. So your error decreases as you increase the complexity, which is correct. And on the test data, the error first decreases and then increases. So which is also correct. So this is definitely correct. Let's look at this. The error on training data first increases and then decreases. I don't think this happens. Okay. The error will see a gradual decrease. As you go on becoming more and more complex, the error decreases like this, not like this. So this is not correct. Okay, only the first and third one is correct. Everybody follows this? So Vikram, the fourth one is not correct. Okay, so let's move to the decision tree example now in Python. So it is very simple, it is not difficult at all. So first what I will do is I will generate some sample data, and we will try to run decision trees on a sample data, which I call the toy data. Why do I call toy data? Because this is a very small data I have artificially generated just for illustration. So this is the data that I have. I have two independent variables, x1 and x2, and this is my dependent variable, which is binary in nature. Okay. So what I will do is I will plot this data. First, I will plot this data. So I import my NumPy. We have seen all of this before. Okay. So let me run this. Then I read the data. So it will take a while. Okay, I had updated my Python version, so I'll have to install. Just give me a minute, guys. So I install the py.plus library, py.plus. Okay, I'll have to go to the Anaconda prompt. Okay, so this will require me to restart my system, which I'm not going to do now. So I'll not run this code. I'll just leave it as it is instead of running the codes. I'll just open it once again. I have run it previously. Okay, so I have imported all the libraries that I'll be needing. Okay, this is a library that is used just for colors, some particular color. Then I'm reading the data. Okay, I'm reading the same data in Python, and this is just printing the data. Now this is where I have plotted the data. Okay, so when you plot the data, when you plot this data, it would look something like this. Okay, you have the x1 axis here. This is your x1 axis, and this is your x2 axis. Okay, now on this data we have to draw a decision tree. We have to make predictions for this data. I just have the training data. I do not have a test data here. Okay, so do you understand the question that we are trying to do? So we are trying to create a decision tree on this data. Just give me a moment, guys. I'm getting a call. Okay, so this is the data that I have to draw a decision tree on. Okay, so these are few additional libraries that we need when we do a decision tree. Okay, so nothing to remember here. You can just copy paste it. Just I'll share this file with you. You can just copy paste. Okay, so from sklearn.externals you have to import this. You have to import the image also. This is to get to look at the tree, and you have to install a software. So I'll send you a detailed instruction. You need to install a software to get the decision tree. So the answer to this will basically look like a, so we will be able to see a tree like this. My system is too slow. Even to open an image it takes some time. Okay, you will see a decision tree like this. This is how Python creates a decision tree for you. Okay, we will study this in details, but for now, so that for that we need a software. You need to install a software. I'll send you a detailed instruction, a list by step-by-step instruction on how to install the software and all. Okay, now at first you have to decide what are the independent variables you want to use. So from sklearn we will use the sklearn library for it. So from sklearn import tree, and then you will decide the columns that you want to use. I just have two independent variables, so I'll write x1 and x2. Okay, and then this is the procedure. So you first create an empty decision tree object. Okay, so this is how you used to do in logistic also. You write tree dot decision tree classifier. Okay, so inside this tree that you have imported, there is a function called decision tree classifier, and you specify based on what do you want to split. So I want to split based on Gini index. That is why I write Gini here. and this is just random state, and you have given a max depth of 1. Now what is this max depth? This is the complexity that we were talking about. Okay, so when you give a max depth of 1, that means you will have only, so let's say if this is the tree, this means the depth is 1. Okay, if this is the tree, the depth is 2. Okay, because it goes, this is depth 1, this is depth 2. If this is the tree, the depth is 3. 1, 2 and 3. So you are limiting the max depth. You are not allowing it to go beyond 1. You are giving a max depth of 1. Why are you doing that? You may want to do that to prevent overfitting. Okay, so ideally, how would you know whether it should be 1, 2, 3 or 10? So you try all possible approaches. You try all possible approaches, and whichever gives the best accuracy on the test data, you select that one. Are you following, guys? We were discussing this yesterday. You try with different values of max depth, whichever gives the best accuracy on the test data, that is what you select. Okay, so this is, for example, this becomes your max depth. This is your max depth axis. So how would you know which is the best? You go on increasing. First start from here, then here, then here, then here, and go on increasing. Wherever you see that the accuracy increases, and at one point you will see that the accuracy of the test data will start to fall. So that is where you stop. So this is the best max depth. Okay, so this is how you decide. You can write it in a loop. You can write this max depth in a loop and keep on varying it, and then for every max depth you will calculate the confusion matrix, and you will keep on checking the accuracy on the test data. Whichever gives the best value on the test data, you select that particular max depth. Okay, so you run this, then you fit the tree, you give your independent variables, you give your dependent variables, and then you just predict. Okay, I have done prediction also. So I have predicted on the training data itself. I have just predicted on the training data, and then this is the confusion matrix I'm creating. We have seen this before. Okay, now to view the tree, to get this image that I just showed you, to get this image, you have to write this additional line of code. There's nothing new here. You just give the name of the file that you want to save. I have given toy tree underscore depth1.png, which is the name of the image file. Okay, so you run this, and then you will see a image here. You will see an image in the same directory that your file is in. So what information do you get from this image? See, you have the decision being made. So your decision is being made on x1, on the variable x1, and then you have the value of Gini index before split. This is the root node. Okay, this is before split. Then you have the total number of data points in that bucket. Before split you have 11 points, and then how many zeros and how many ones do you have? So you have 6 zeros and 5 ones. Okay, so let me go to the data. So let me come here. Yeah, so this is what you have. So the yellows are your ones and the blues are your 0. Okay, and let me open the image also here, side by side. Okay, so first you have your decision is based on x1. So that means at this point, do you see 4.5 here? It will be somewhere here. It will be somewhere here. So this is where the split is being made. And this is the Gini index before split. It is 0.496. Samples is 11. You have 11 points total. If you count, there are 11 points. There are six blue points. So your blue is your 0. Okay, which is 6 in number, and your yellow is your 1, which is 5 in number. So that is what you see in the first bucket. Now after split, the Gini index of the first bucket. Okay, so this is your b1, this is your b2. So this is your b1, this is your b2. So after split, the Gini index in your first bucket is 0.32. You can calculate and verify these numbers, whatever Python is giving you. You know the formula, you can easily do it. The total number of samples is 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have 1, 1, 0, which is your blue. You have 1, 0 and 4 ones, which you can see similarly this. So do you understand this, guys? Do you understand this? And everybody, how Python is giving you? Yes, guys, do you understand? Guys, please respond. Do you understand? Okay. So similarly, you can vary the depth also. So next what I will do is I have done the same thing, but I have increased the depth now. I have increased the max depth to 2. Okay. So when you increase the max depth to 2, you will get another tree which will have a depth of 2. So this is with max depth of 2, and finally you will have with max depth of 3. And you look at the Gini index. Look at the Gini index is 0 for this bucket, 0 for this bucket, 0 for this, and 0 for this. So the more you go on splitting, or the more complex you become, your Gini index reduces. But you might be overfitting here. Okay, you might be overfitting. I do not have a test data here to verify whether I have overfit or not, because this is just for illustration. But you may not want to do this always. Increase the max depth to a very large number. Okay, we decide the max depth based on looking at the test data. Here we do not have a test data, this is just for illustration. But as you go on splitting, you can see the value of Gini index keeps falling, and you see the decisions are being made on different variables. You have x1 here, x2 here, again x1, again x1, x2 here. So whichever variable gives the least value of Gini index, it will select that variable automatically. Okay, so this is just based on, I change the value of max depth to 3 here. This one, max depth of 3. So you can see the plot here also. Okay, so here if you see, and the colors also represent, okay, the colors represent how pure is your bucket. So you see this color, this is light, neither blue nor orange. That means it has a mixture. This is impure. So slowly as it turns blue, that means it is becoming more and more pure. Similarly, as it turns orange, it means it is becoming more and more pure. Okay, the colors also represent purity here. So towards the end, you will see all of them are dark blue or dark orange, because they are pure buckets. So for example, this only has ones, it has two ones. This only has 0, this only has 0, and this only has 1. So these are all pure buckets. We started with 6 0 and 5 ones, but at the last we have either 0 or 1 in the bucket. So they are pure blue or pure orange in color. Okay. So it's simple. Running decision trees in Python is not at all difficult. The codes are pretty simple. So all you have to do is understand the maths that happens at the back end. Okay. The codes, nobody will ask you in none of the interviews you will be asked codes. It is the concepts which will be asked, and you should understand that. Codes you can get on Google, you can just copy paste, and you just have to change the variables that you are trying to use, and on whichever data you want to run, you can run a decision tree. Okay, so after this we will see another example, a more difficult example. This is a pretty simple toy data. We will see next on a larger data set. How can we run a decision tree and how can we make a prediction on it? Okay, we will see the prediction in terms of classes directly and also in terms of probability. Okay, so guys, I need a break at this point. Okay, I need a break at this point. So let's be back by 10. It's 9:45 now. We will be back by 10. Okay, so we have seen how in Python we would run a decision tree algorithm. So it requires a few steps which are required if you want to see the tree. Okay, guys. So these extra piece of code which looks a little intimidating. So these extra piece that you see here, that is only required if you want to see the decision tree in Python. Okay. Let's say if you don't want to see the decision tree, you just want to make a prediction. Okay, you're not concerned with how the tree looks like. Sometimes in the industry we are not concerned with how the tree looks like, because this is just for understanding, right? You may not want to look at which variables are being used and all. You may just want to get the predictions out. Now to get the predictions out, you can just use the simple predict function as you used for logistic regression. Okay, so you see, I have done this prediction, this predict function, just like we used to do in logistic regression, and here I have created the confusion matrix. Done. So these extra things that you see, the extra piece of code, which looks a little difficult, that is only required if you want to see the tree. So if you don't want to see the tree, you just skip this, and you can still get the predictions out. You can still predict for the test data. Okay. Okay. Now let us look at a slightly bigger example. So first, let me talk about the data for this bigger example, and then we will run a decision tree algorithm on it. So this data set is called the quality data. So this is how it looks like. This is my dependent variable, and all the remaining variables that you see are independent variables. I have one member ID also. This is just for identification purpose. I will not use this as an independent variable. This is just for identification. Okay, so let me first briefly talk about the data. I think I have the description of this data mentioned already. Okay, okay, I don't have it here. Let me describe it to you. So this data set is taken from a hospital. Okay, this data set is taken from a chain of hospitals. What you have as the first variable is the member ID. Okay, this is the member ID. This is the inpatient days. So for how many days was a member admitted to a hospital? Okay, inpatient days. So first member, the patient with member ID 1, he was not admitted to the hospital for any days, so 0 days. Okay, maybe he just came for a checkup or something. Okay, similarly ER visits. So for how many days did that person visit the ER room? I think ER room is the operation room where operations are performed. That is what is called the ER room. Okay, so for how many days or how many visits did the member have in the ER room? Okay, then next you have the office visits. How many times did he visited the office? Okay, then narcotics. Was the person given some kind of a drug? So by drug I mean medicine. Okay, then you have days since last visit. So since how many days he has not visited the ER room? Okay, that is this number. Then pain, whether the patient reported that he has pain. okay, anywhere on his body. Does the patient have pain? That is represented here. Okay, the numbers that you see here is the intensity. With what intensity did he report the pain and all? Okay, then you have the total visits. So how many total visits did he have? I think this is the sum of office visits and ER visit. No, it doesn't look like. Okay, I'm myself not sure what this number is, but this is some total visit. Then you have the provider count. Okay, this is also some number. I did not understand very fully. Then medical claims. So did he claim medical from his insurance? Okay, so this is that number. Then claim lines. This is something related to that. I'm not sure. And then this is started on combination. Okay, this is a binary true or false number. Okay, so these are all the independent variables. The dependent variable that you have is called poor care. So I'll tell you what is the objective of this study. So this hospital, so what happens in the US actually, for every hospital, the government monitors the quality of care the hospital provides. Okay, the government monitors that. So how does the government monitor the quality of care the hospitals provide? They look at the patient readmission rates. Okay, so for example, if 100 patients are coming to a hospital, how many of them are being admitted after being discharged? So readmission. Okay, so let's say a person X goes to a hospital, and let's say after a week of treatment or after 10 days of treatment he is discharged from the hospital. So does the patient come back after some time? After being discharged, does he come back with again with some kind of recurring problem? If that happens, that means the hospital did not diagnose him properly in the first visit. Okay, so that is a patient readmission. So the government monitors the quality of healthcare being provided by the hospitals by looking at these readmission rates. So how many times is the patient coming back again? Okay, I really hope we had this in India. The all the hospitals have become money making machines here, and I'm not sure if the government has anything to put a check on that. But yeah, whatever be the case, this is how it is done in the US. They look at readmissions, and if the readmission proportion increases beyond a threshold, the government imposes fine on the hospital. Okay, so let's say if the threshold is 10%, then if the readmission rate increases beyond 10%, the hospitals will be fined by the government. Okay, so this is why there is a pressure on the hospitals to eliminate readmission rates or keep it below the thresholds. Okay, so now that is the scenario. Okay, now what is this data trying to do? In this data, this study is being done by the hospital itself. So a particular hospital was suffering from high readmission rates. Okay, so the hospital was afraid that if they don't control the readmission rates, they will have to bear the fine from the government. So what they did is they internally, looking at this data, wanted to find out if they can know in advance which are the patients who will probably come back after being discharged. If they can know that in advance, they can give special treatment to those patients so that they don't come back. Okay, they can give special treatment to potential readmission patients so that they don't come back and they avoid a higher readmission rates. So do you understand the concept, the context, guys? So the poor care variable that you see here, that just gives you whether the patient is a potential readmission or not. Okay, so poor care 0 means that this person will not come back as per the model or as per the data. This person did not come back for readmission. 1 means this person came back for readmission. Okay, so this is what it means. So the hospital is trying to predict if it has given poor care to some patients so that it can give special treatment and avoid them coming back. Is the context clear, guys? Okay, okay, so now let us move to the Python, to Python part here. So again, I have imported all the libraries that I'll be needing. Then I'm reading my data, and these are the variables I have, which we discussed. I have 131 rows and 14 columns. Okay, so here I will divide my data into training and test. So I have used the same approach that we used in logistic regression or in linear regression. From sklearn, I have imported model selection, and I have imported the function train test split. Okay, now using train test split, I have divided my data into training and test. This is the same approach, nothing new here. I have used only two variables here. I did not use all the variables. You can try using all the variables. I have used only two here. So while I was reading the context of the problem from some website, I found that these two variables are very important, which is why I have used only these two. You can try with other variables and see if it gives you a better accuracy. Okay, I'm keeping 30% of my data into test and the remaining into train, and I'm keeping a random state also so that I get reproducible results, or people who are also using the same random state get the same answer. Okay, then I'm importing from sklearn, importing the tree. Then I'm deciding which columns I will be using, these two columns. Then I'm just creating an empty wrapper here. I'm creating an empty wrapper, and then I'm fitting my data into the tree using the tree dot fit, the name of the tree, which is cl underscore tree dot fit x train y train, and this is where I make a prediction. So here I'm not going after the tree. I'm not looking at the tree at all. I'm directly going for a prediction. So once the tree is fit, I'm using the predict function. So name of the tree dot predict, the same syntax as in logistic regression. In logistic also you use the name of the model dot predict. Here also I'm doing the same. So name of the model dot predict, and you give the training data. You give only the training data. So remember always, once you have found out so on your training data, what do? Y is equal to f of, so you know this, you find this. Okay, on the training data you find this. So once this is done, you go to your test data and you use this function and you give your x. Okay, and then you find this is the goal. So what you are giving as input is only x, not your y, from the test data. So that's why I have given only the x here, not the y. And then I can prepare the confusion matrix, because I know the actual y also. For this x, I know the actual y, and I know the predicted y now because I have predicted here. So I'll prepare the confusion matrix, and then I can calculate the accuracy, sensitivity, specificity, and all other parameters. Okay, so all the parameters I can predict, and this is what I have done. Okay, this is to get the tree. So let me show you the tree. I have done that also. If you look at the tree, it's a very big tree. Obviously, because this is a larger data, so this is how the tree will look like for a large data set. What we did was for a toy problem, which is why we saw a very small tree. Here we have a large tree. Okay, so we start out with 67 zeros and 24 ones. So you can see the Gini index is 0.38, and towards the end, if you will see, we will have more purity. So 2 in 1, and 2 zeros and 1 in one bucket, 3 zeros and 1 in one bucket. Okay, here you have 4 zeros and 0 ones. So you are more pure towards the end. Okay, compared to what you started with. Okay, so these steps are the same. There's no difference here. So any questions, guys? Do you have any questions here? Okay, now what I want to discuss here is, what is this min sample sleep? If you have noticed, I have used one additional parameter. I have used max depth of 12. Okay, which is why you see a very large tree, because I have allowed it to grow. If you see the depth here, it is probably around 12. Okay, it is around 12, but you will see an additional parameter, min samples leaf is equal to 10. Now what is that parameter? I have described that here. The below two parameters can be used to control overfitting. You can play around with these and come up with a better model. Okay, so max depth of 5, it defines the depth of the tree. More depth may lead to overfitting. Okay, we have already studied max depth parameter. Now what is this? Min samples leaf is equal to 8 or 10, whatever I have given. This defines when the splitting will stop. Okay, so the purpose of this parameter is also to control overfitting. Both max depth and min samples leaf try to control overfitting. Now what is min samples leaf? If a node, so if you give min samples leaf as, let's say, 8. Okay, if you give min samples leaf is equal to 8, what does that mean? This means that if a node or bucket has less than 8 data points, it will not go for a further split. This too will control overfitting. Smaller this value, more is the overfitting. Okay, so let me explain this parameter to you. You don't need both the parameters. Any one if you use is enough, but you should know because you might get that as a question in interview. So let's say I have this. Okay, I have this, and let's say I have made a split here, and let's say I have minuses and I have some pluses here also. Now when you start with a decision tree, it will create a split here, and then it might create a split here if you allow it to. It might create splits here. Okay, now how will the decision tree know that it has to create only this split or this also and this also? How will it know? It will know when you give the max depth parameter. Okay, if you give max depth as 1, it will create only this split. If you give max depth as 2, it might create this plus this plus this. Or if you give 3, it might create all the 3 splits. Okay, so that is what max depth does. Now similar to max depth, you have another parameter called min samples leaf. Okay, what is this min samples leaf? Now the moment you give min sample leaves as 5, okay, if you give min samples leaf as 5, so leaf means the end of the tree, right? If you remember, the terminal nodes are known as leaf. Okay, so if you have any tree, leaf is the end of the tree. Okay, so that means we are talking about the terminal nodes. So when you give min sample leaves as 5, and I have given min here, not max. Okay, this is max depth and this is min. That means at least the decision tree algorithm will try to have at least 5 points in the terminal node. It will not go beyond 5. It will not go below 5. Okay, it will have 5 or more than 5 points in the terminal node. So what does that mean? If you make this split, how many points will you have in the terminal node? Here you will have only 2 points, so which will violate this, right? Because this is the minimum we can take, so it will not go for this split. Similarly, if you go for this splits, how many points will you have in one of the buckets? In the above bucket you will have only 2 points, which is below this number, so it will not go for this split. It will avoid going or taking this split, because if it takes this split, this constraint is violated. The min sample leaves becomes below 5, but you have given that it has to be 5, minimum of 5, so that means it cannot go below that. So it will try to avoid this split and this split. This split it will take, because both sides you have more than 5, but these two splits will not be taken. So this is another way of controlling overfitting. Are you following, guys? Are you following this? Oops, I had gone on mute. Okay. So once again, min sample leaves. The keywords that I see here is minimum, the word minimum, and the word leaf. Okay, the word minimum means whatever number is specified, you cannot go below that because this is the minimum. Okay, this is the minimum, so you cannot go below that. Okay, the next keyword that I see here is the word leaf. Leaf means the end of the tree, the end point of the tree. Okay, leaf is the end of the tree. So what does this mean? This means that no matter what splits you do, you cannot go below 5 points. Okay, you should not go below 5 points after split. So that means on this data, if I make this split, or if I make this split, if I make this split, or if I make this splits, what does that result into? That results into buckets which are having less than 5 points. So here I have only 2 points, here also I have only 2 points. So that means this constraint is getting violated. So these splits will not happen, it will just stop after this first split. It will not go for the second or third split, because if it does that, this constraint is violated. Okay, now is it clear, guys? That is what min samples leaf does. So Vikram is asking, is it possible to draw a tree for more than 2 variables? Yes, of course, Vikram. Of course. You can draw it for thousands of variables at once. The number of variables is at once, in the sense, I'm not sure what you mean. So if you see this, okay, here also I have 2 variables, but yeah, you can draw. I haven't shown you that here, but you can draw for any number of variables. The number of variables is not a concern. Okay, so for example, here I have given only 2 variables, right? You can give as many variables as you want here, not necessarily 2. Okay, did I answer your question, Vikram? Okay, any other questions, guys? So what I would want you guys to do is, I will share you both these codes. Play as much as possible with these codes. Okay, try to change the values, try to change this, try to change the value of min sample leaves, and then look at the tree. Try to change the value of max depth and then look at the tree. Okay, play around. The more you play, the more you will understand. Okay, play around. On this toy example, on this toy data, for example, you can play around, change, you can add the min sample leaves here also, and see how it is influencing your tree. Okay, then you can calculate the Gini index manually. Here the Gini index is given by Python. You know the formula to calculate Gini index. Do that yourself and see, is it matching with what Python is giving you or not. So play around. Okay, you have this small data which you understand very well. Play around with this as much as possible and see, the more you play, the more you will understand. Okay, and I will try to give you one homework, guys, which will be a little difficult, but I want you guys to try that. Okay, what you will have to do is, remember we discussed how overfitting happens, right? So let's say you have your complexity here, which is like number of splits, and you have your accuracy here. So I'll give you a data where this will be your training, and your test will look something like this, right guys? This is your test. Now in that data you will have to find what should be the best value of max depth, right? What should be the best value of max depth? You will have to find that. How will you find that? Let's say you start from 1 to, let's say, 20. So the best number of max depth is somewhere in the middle. Let's say it is 10, but you don't know if it is 10 or 12 or 15 or 7. So what you will do, you will start a loop. You will start a loop in Python. So for I in, let's say, 1 to 20, okay, and so on. You will start a loop in Python, and for every value of I, or for every value from 1 to 20, you will create a decision tree. You will create a decision tree with max depth is equal to I. So your max depth will keep on changing. Now you cannot do this 20 times from 1 to 20, right? So you will do this in a loop, and inside the loop you will be training your model and predicting on a test data set, okay, and then looking at the output. Then at last you will draw this particular plot. Whatever plot I have drawn here, you will draw this on a data, okay, and then you can easily decide looking at the plot that beyond which point your accuracy on test data is decreasing, okay. So you will be able to identify that, okay, 10 is the best number for max depth. Similarly you can do for min samples leaf also, min sample leaves also. So for min sample leaves, so tell me guys, how will it vary? For min sample leaves, if you have, let's say this is accuracy and this is min samples leaf. So how will it look for training data and for test data? Tell me guys. This is for training and this is for test. Think what I just explained about min samples leaf. What does this number do? And then tell me how will it look like for training and test. Starts from 1 and goes till 20, let's say. How will it look like? Think and tell me, okay? This is a little tricky. More the samples, high the accuracy, that is on training or on test, Vikram? More leaf, more accuracy, that is on training or test? Okay, so let me draw it for training then. So most of you are saying that for training it will look like this, right guys? So why do you think so? Any reason why do you think so? More leaf causes more purity. Yes, you, that is correct. So Arpita is right. The more you, the more leaves you have, the more is the purity for training data. So that is correct. So your accuracy will increase. Okay. Now what about the test data then? How will it look like for the test data? Okay, Arpita says first it decreases and then increases. What about Vikram? Vikram, what do you think? Vikram Sinhoz, what do you think? How will it look like for the test data? Yes, guys. So imagine if your min samples leaf is only one. If your min sample leaves is only one, what will happen? Will it result in more splits or will it result in less splits? Okay, actually this is wrong. Whatever we have given here for train data is wrong. Okay, so min sample leaves a very small number. Will it result in more splits or will it result in less splits? Irrespective of the train or test, it will result in more splits, right? Always remember, min sample leaf is opposite of max depth. Okay, so higher the value of max depth, more splits is what you will get. But higher the value of min sample leaf, let's say if you have 10 data points, if you have these many data points, okay, 1 2 3 4 5 6, if you have 6 data points and if you give min sample leaves as 7, then even this split will not happen because it will violate that, right guys? Even this split will not happen, it will violate this as well. So smaller value of min sample leaves means more splits. Okay, so more splits means on the training data more is the accuracy. So for the training data it will look like this. As it increases, the accuracy will come down on the training data. Do you follow, guys? Do you follow this? If your min sample leaf is a very large number, let's say infinite, then you will not have any splits happening. If it is, let's say 1000, no splits will happen. Okay, no, you did not get. Okay, so guys, first understand min depth, max depth. Okay, what does max depth mean? Max depth is equal to 1 versus max depth is 10. Which one will have more splits? Which one will have more splits? Tell me. First one or second one? Yes, this will have more splits, right? This is clear to everybody? This is clear, right? Now, similarly, you have min sample leaf. Okay. Now, min sample leaf 1 versus min sample leaf 10. Now, this is opposite of max depth. Always remember this and this are inversely proportional. Now, what does this mean? Min sample leaves of 1. This means that it will go on splitting till you have 1 point. Okay, this means go on splitting till you have at least 10 point, till you have at least. Okay, this is what it means. So which one will result in more splits? Tell me, will this result in more splits or will this result in more splits? Which one will result in more splits, first one or second one? Yes, one, Vikram, this first one will result in more splits. Okay, this will result in less splits. Look at the explanation I have given. So it will go on splitting till you have at least 1 point. So that means it will go on splitting. So let's say if this is your data, it will, let's say I have minus here, I have plus here. So it will split like this, then it will split like this, it will split like this. It will go on splitting till you have at least 1 point. But here it is 10. So it will just split once here and then it will see that I'm getting only 1 point. 1 is less than 10, so it will stop. Okay. So that is why I'm saying that with respect to min sample leaves, if you give less value, that means more split. Less value means more split. So more split is always good for the training data. So your accuracy will be high. More split is always good for the training data. So your accuracy will be high. and very large number means no splits will happen at all. Now if no splits happens, obviously that is not good. Your model will be very simple model, it just gives one split and done. So it is bad, your accuracy will be less. And what about the test data, guys? How will it look for the test data? Yes, guys, how will it look for the test data? If you understood, you will be able to answer this. Think and tell me, how will it look for the test data? Yes, so initially when your number of splits is, when your min sample leaf is a small number, what does that mean? When your min sample leaf is a small number, it means that you will have more and more splits, right? So is more and more splits good for the test data? Is more and more splits good for the test data? Okay, Sinoj says it is good. No, it is not good. It means it has overfit. You cannot create too many splits on your test data. It causes overfitting. Okay, so your accuracy will be less. That means let's start somewhere here. We will start somewhere here. Now let's come to this point. Now, if your min sample leaf is a very large number, is that good for the test data? If your min sample leaves is a very large number, that means your model is very simple. It's an underfit model. So here also it will be less. So that means it will look something like this. Okay, it will look something like this. So initially it will be less, it will go on increasing, and after a while, so this is where overfitting happens. Okay, and this is where underfitting happens. Somewhere in the middle is where the best number exists, and this you find using the test data. So always remember, guys, for the test data, the curve, any curve like this is always a U. It is either a inverted U or a straight U, but it is always a U, because in any machine learning algorithm there is always a trade-off. There is always a trade-off between overfitting and underfitting. For the train data it will be simple, it will either be this or it will either be this, but for test data it is always this one. Okay, so the best way to understand this is look at these numbers. So make this number as very small and as 1, and then see the effect of this on the accuracy for both train and test. So think of it in this way, that if my min sample leaves is very small, let's say 1, what will that result on the training data? What will that result on the test data? And then understand the implication of that. Similarly, take that min sample leaf to be a very large number, and then understand the implication of it on the training and the test data. And then you will have understood the concept. Okay. So in the homework, I'll give you something where you will have to find the best value of max depth and the best value of min sample leaf. You don't have to use both here in the same model. You can use only one of them. Actually, it is better if you use only one of them, because both of them do the same purpose. The purpose of using both is the same. So any one of them will suffice. You don't have to use both. Any doubts, guys? Okay. So this is all I had for today. So now you must be comfortable with another algorithm, which is decision tree. And we have seen how decision trees can be used for classification. We are yet to see how decision tree can be used for regression. Okay, we will see that in the next class. How can we use decision trees for regression? Decision trees can be used for regression also, where your dependent variable is a number, is a continuous number. It's not one or zero. Okay, that also is possible. So now let me ask you a question before we wrap up. So guys, first tell me what is a baseline algorithm? Who can tell me this? What is the baseline algorithm? But what is that same value? It always predicts the same value irrespective of x. What is that same value? It is like the average model. Okay, average model. So for regression, it is the average model, but for classification, what is it? For classification, what does it give? It will give the mean in case of regression, but in case of 1-0 problem, what will it give? Yes, guys. Yes, it gives the mode. Whichever is more in number, it just predicts that. If ones are more, it will predict one. If zeros are more, it will predict zero. Okay, that is a baseline algorithm. Now, look at a decision tree carefully. Let's say you have plus, 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 and one minus here. You have minus, 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 and one plus here. And you make a split here. You make a split here on, let's say, x1, this is 5. This is x2. You write x1 is less than equal to 5, true and false. If it is true, what will I write here? What will I write here? Plus or minus? I will write plus here, right? Because I have 3 plus and here I will write minus, right? Right, guys? This is what we were doing so far. Okay. Now tell me if this statement is true or not. So understand what I have written carefully and tell me if this is true or if this is false. Yes, I'm talking about classification. Regression we will see in the next class. I'm just talking about classification. Okay, yeah, this is true. Okay, so what we are doing is actually we are going by the baseline algorithm, but the original baseline algorithm looks at all the data and then it predicts the mode of it. But here we are not looking at all the data, we are only looking within a bucket. We are only looking within a bucket and we are predicting whether it is plus or whether it is minus. So this is true. Probability, of course, if you want to go by probability, we can go by probability also. But if you want to go by the class, then this statement is true. Okay. Even if you go by a probability, Arpita, you will use a threshold to convert the probability to ones and zeros. And if you use a threshold of 0.5, the default threshold, you will arrive at the same conclusion. Okay. Using a default threshold of 0.5 means taking the mode by default. Okay. So guys, this is all I had for today. If you have any questions, you can ask me or we can conclude otherwise. So I'll give you some assignments. Please complete the assignments before next week's class. We will have a class next week also. Okay. So please complete the assignment. I want you guys to be with the class. Okay. So whatever you have done so far, linear regression, logistic, if you haven't completed all the assignments, you skip it. You can do that later after the course completes. You can do that later. But right now, you just learn decision tree. Focus only on decision tree, nothing else.